everyone, welcome to GM Circle. I keep answering your questions, so please feel free to write me on Ask Xenia in GM Circle forum, and I will find some time to answer your questions. Here is another one to Martina. She asked me these questions. Could you help me again? This time I would love to have some suggestions about how to do a musicality class. Which explanations would you provide to your students? Which kind of exercise would you let them do? And finally, which tunes do you think are better for this specific goal? So right away, to answer the last question, I will post a link to my Spotify compilation for the tunes where you can talk about musicality, to show the differences between the tunes, the blues, the jazz song, and so on and so on. So I just recently taught this class, actually a couple of days ago at Paris Just Roots Festival. I started my class with explaining the difference between the major styles, ragtime, New Orleans, swing, and bebop. What I find is very useful and important to talk when we compare the styles is how does the groove, how does the feeling of our body changes when we dance to this or that style of music. So for instance, ragtime music, what is interesting is that it derives from marching music, so it's still sort of straight, but it has this rag in it, and the groove that we get from that tune is a half-time feel, as a 2-beat feel. 1 8 1 8 boom boom tunk 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 tunk, something that is really goes very harmonically with Charleston 20s feel, for example. It's different in the swing music because there the bass starts to walk, so the bass starts to hit every single beat. Ba-dum, dum, 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 dum. And for this reason, the groove changes completely. All of a sudden, you start bouncing on every single beat. That's your metronome. Dun, 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 dun. Instead of going you go so that I find is really important for understanding how the body behaves, what's the feeling of the music. And then of course I give an example of the bebop tune, because sometimes people are lost when they hear a bebop tune. It's only because the tradition of bebop is the musicians are really free, they're improvising. The bass and the drums are not anymore there to keep the time and to show the dancers where's the one and where's the bar and where's the beat. The drums and the bass are now improvising as well, and sometimes the one beat is inside each musician and they are improvising around it. That's why probably in the beginning, if your ear is still not used to listening to that kind of music, would be lost. You would be like, oh my god, where's the one? Why is it so many notes in the music? It's chaotic. I cannot ground myself. So it's just about really listening to loads and loads of jazz music every day to get used to the feeling, to the one. So yes, to summarize, to explain roughly the difference between the 3 major styles, maybe 4 major styles, and ragtime, the New Orleans, the swing, and the bebop, to listen to that, to try to move to that. The next thing I will talk about is the 2 forms of jazz music, that we have blues and then we have a jazz song. And the blues is 12 bars and the jazz song is 32 bars. And yes, in music we always count till 4. There's no 5, 6, 7, 8. It doesn't exist. It's the same as 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we say bar, we mean it's 1, 2, 3, 4. How to define where is the bar? Always search for the drums or for the bass. If it's a swing song, you can always hear the bass going boom, dong, 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 and that's the beat, that's your bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can listen for the drums hitting the 2 and the 4. And if you find the 2 and the 4 and the drums, you can find your bar. So why dancers count until 8? Primarily because of the moves, the steps like swing out and Charleston basic step. There are 8 count moves, so in this case it's just easier to do it like this. So in music it's 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. And the blues is 12 bars, or you can say 6 8s. For this reason, right away you know that it's like 6 swing outs or 6 Charleston basic steps. So jazz song is a different story. It has a structure A-A-B-A. All the A parts melody-wise are almost the same, and the B part is completely different. It's called the bridge. It's the moment where musicians have a rest, have a little improvisation before they go back to the A part again. If you imagine all the A-A-B-A like a little square, in each square, in each part, A-A-B-A, there's 4 eighths, yeah? 4 eighths or 8 bars. Again, as a dancer, probably it's easier to think of 4 eighths. So for myself, when I listen to blues and jazz song tunes, I have in my head a sort of a dramaturgy of the tune, how it goes, that helps me to be together, to be in one place, in one ocean with the music. So for ABA, a jazz song structure, my dramaturgy goes towards the 4 eighths, and it goes like this. A story with a little detail, suspense, and a break. Dance terms, it could be like this: a movement with variation, any other different movement that is preparing you to grand finale, and the rhythm break. So this very simple thing, which I would give to my students as an exercise. It's an exercise for musicality. It's an exercise as well to revive the vocabulary. For example, you can do tekieni, variation of tekieni, fall of the lock, any rhythm break. You either sing it and you do it with your feet, or you do some rhythm break that you know already, like half break or shim sham complete break, and so on and so forth. And for blues, for instance, if I understand there's 12 bars or 6 eighths, if I listen to the tunes, I divide them pretty much like this. There are tunes that have a riff. Riff is a repetitive phrase that goes exactly 6 times, yeah? So 6 times you hear 6 eighths, you hear the riff, yeah? And then it's the head of the blues. The other tunes, they would have a phrasing. Blues phrasing would last always longer than 1/8. Blues phrasing would go something like, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. Spa-da-day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and a 1, 2, 3. Tap, tap. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sa-ba-doo-ba, ba-doo-ba, ba-doo-ba. You know what I mean? This would be pretty much the structure. In this case, I would always follow either the riff, if there is a riff, like a repetitive phrase, or I would follow this dramaturgy, a movement, a little filler, yes? So something that fills the space around this move. For example, Charleston basic step, little filler for the second 8, Charleston basic step again, a different filler, suspense move, and a break move. And in that sense, you get 6 eighths, for instance. So by having this sort of a storyline or this understanding of what is happening inside the structure, you can swing together with the tune to find the most important thing, is the point of connection, the breaks, for instance, the resolutions. You know that in blues structure, the resolution is coming later. It's coming on the 5th or the 6th 8, and in the jazz song, the resolution would pretty much all the time would be on the 4th 8. Yes. So the tunes like Honeysuckle Rose, I Found a New Baby, Sweet You Just You, Take the A Train, these are the tunes that are jazz songs that has A-B-A structure. The B is a bridge that is always different from all the A theme tunes. There's always a dramaturgy of 4 eighths, where the 4th 8 is the rhythm break. And you have the blues tunes that have 12 bars or 6 eighths, whether the phrase lasts 2 eighths or whether the phrase is a riff. I would always, of course, take time to explain what the riff is. The riff is a repetitive phrase. For instance, in the big bands or orchestras, when a trumpet or a saxophone or a instrument takes a solo, the pack of horns are supporting the solo behind with some groovy musical phrase. Woo-wop, woo-wop, woo-wop. You know what I mean? Or for instance, the riff could be a repetitive phrase, could be the main theme. Yes, the examples of those tunes you can find in the link that I provide for my Spotify. So the exercise first is I would of course make a sort of a test. I put random tunes, maybe not very familiar in the beginning, maybe very familiar in the then not very familiar tunes, so that people can guess or can answer which tune is a blues structure, which tune is a jazz song structure. Always help them to find okay, you can count, that's one thing, but then open your ear and hear the phrase. What's the phrase? Is the phrase long? If it's more than 1/8 count, then most likely it's going to be blues, because the resolution would come later. If the phrase is short, then you have to hear where is the resolution. If the feeling of resolving the poetic storyline of the form comes sooner than later, most likely that would be a jazz song. That would be my explanation. When you go deeper into the musicality, you can of course talk about the backbeats, so the offbeats and how are they emphasized. You can talk about riffs, you can talk about improvisations and how musicians improvise over the blues or the jazz song form. You can talk about the subdivisions, the fours, the eights, the swinging eights, the triplets, and so on and so forth. You can find the video of time signatures that I give a breakdown as well here in the link down. But I would suggest, if it's a beginner's jazz class, just start with those very simple things. Explain to people the differences between the styles and what to search for in those styles, how to choose your groove and styling, and then explain the differences between the forms and how to try to be connected to those tunes by knowing the dramaturgy. There you go. I hope you find it very helpful. Please leave the comments if you have any more questions, or how was your experience teaching that.